All right, today we're diving into one of the absolute wildest passages in the entire book of Revelation. Seriously, it is filled with some crazy imagery. We're talking locusts that look like war horses wearing golden crowns, and get this, they have human faces. It sounds like something straight out of a fantasy epic, right? But according to the interpretation we're looking at, it's actually a really powerful metaphor with a very specific meaning. So let's get ready to decode this thing together.
So here it is, Revelation 9, verse 7. Just take a second and let that imagery wash over you. Horses, crowns, human faces, all on locusts. What in the world is the author John trying to tell us here? Are these literal creatures from some nightmare, a vision of future military tech? Well, the interpretation we're exploring today says it's none of that. Instead, this is a symbolic picture of a spiritual force. Let's start with that very first image, because it's the key.
So first up, locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. This is our way in. This is the phrase that really sets the stage for the entire vision. And it immediately tells us we're not looking at random chaos, but it's something disciplined, powerful, and ready for action.
Now here's the first big piece of the puzzle you have to get. These aren't bugs. They're not literal locusts at all. According to this source, they are a metaphor for the church. But not just the church as a quiet Sunday gathering, no. This is the church as an active, spirit-empowered force, described as fierce and fully prepared. You know, the horse imagery isn't just about being aggressive. It's about very specific things. Think about a trained warhorse. It represents incredible strength, right? But also intense discipline and courage. It doesn't just charge wildly. It moves with purpose. It advances boldly. And that's the spiritual posture being described here.
And this is absolutely crucial. This point frames everything else we're going to talk about. This whole vision, this whole army, it's not about a physical war. There are no swords, no spears. The battlefield here is spiritual, and the fight is against what the Bible calls darkness.
And you know, this isn't some new idea pulled out of thin air. It's backed up in other places, like right here in 2 Corinthians. It makes a super clear distinction. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're not physical. This just reinforces the idea that the war horses in Revelation are a symbol for a spiritual army using spiritual tools.
Okay, so we've got a disciplined spiritual army. Makes sense. But what about the next part of this vision? Let's move on to those golden crowns. What do they tell us?
This is so cool. See, in the original Greek language that the New Testament was written in, there isn't just one word for crown. There are a couple, and they mean different things. A diadem is what a king wears. It's a symbol of his inherent right to rule. But a Stephanos, that's different. Think of the laurel wreath they'd give to an Olympic champion or a conquering hero. It's a crown you earn by winning a fight.
And guess which word is used right here in Revelation? Yep, it's Stephanos. This tells us that these spiritual warriors are overcomers. Their authority isn't something they were just born with, it's a prize for victory, and it's a crown given to them by their commander, Jesus. And we see this exact same idea pop up in other parts of the Bible, like this verse from James. The crown of life is promised to the person who endures, the one who overcomes temptation. It's a reward for getting through the trial, not a birthright. It's a Stephanos.
So, putting it all together, while this army has a royal position, their authority is delegated. It's given to them. They wear the victor's crown because they are acting on behalf of the one true king. It's a symbol of both their victory and their submission to a higher power.
Okay, let's get to the final detail in this verse, and it might just be the strangest one. So we have battle-ready spiritual horses, wearing victor's crowns, and they have the faces of men. What could that possibly be about? Well, this illustrates a fascinating duality that the source material really zeroes in on. The faces of men means that on the outside, in their day-to-day appearance, these spiritual warriors are just people, you and me. They look human, they're natural, they're relatable. But that's only half the story. Their spiritual reality, what's going on under the surface, is a supernatural calling with divine authority and real power.
This all ties back to a core idea in the faith, that human beings are made in God's image and are actually given authority. So while this spiritual army might look totally ordinary on the outside, they're meant to operate as kings and priests in his kingdom, wielding a power that goes way beyond what you see.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together now. We've taken apart the warhorse, we've looked at the crown, and we've talked about the human face. So what does it all look like when you put the whole picture, the fully assembled spiritual soldier, back together?
Well, when you combine all those elements,
a really clear identity starts to emerge. First, you have a body, a posture that's totally battle-ready, strong, disciplined, and focused. Second, you have an authority that comes from victory, granted from above, not taken for yourself. And third, you have this amazing dual nature. You look human on the outside, but you're empowered by the divine on the inside.
And that's really the big takeaway from this interpretation. Revelation 9:7 isn't just a jumble of scary, weird images. It's a completely cohesive and powerful portrait of a spiritual army. An army that's unified in its mission, courageous in its actions, and operating under the authority of God Himself.
So as we finish up here, this whole idea leaves us with a pretty challenging thought. If this isn't just some ancient, dusty symbolism, but if it's actually a blueprint for spiritual life, then it's a call to action, isn't it? It leaves us with a very personal question. In your own life, what does it really mean to be prepared into battle today?